Hello, and welcome to a humble episode of the Drywall podcast. I'm your host, Nick Harmon. With us today, Greg Strebe of Finishing Touch Drywall out of Springfield, Missouri. Scott gave me a call out of the blue and wanted a spot on the Drywall podcast. He claimed he had a good story to tell, and does he ever?
60-day
Greg's playing hardball with the now all of a sudden you have a file says Greg Strebe, and there's like a team of people that are preventing you from leaving Amazon.
So,
I see it. They're having meetings about Greg. How do we keep this guy?
Yeah. So I put in a 60-day notification and again have some of those similar conversations. And I'm like, no, whether I have another job or not, I'm like, I need a break. I have to to recoup my soul. So
Greg's story is unique in that he left the drywall industry to pursue a high-paying career at Amazon, but then felt like his soul was getting sucked, so he went back to drywall. Very unique. This episode and all of the episodes in October are brought to you by our friends at CSR, supplying the drywall community with just about every tool you can imagine, and even some tools you couldn't imagine. Their locations are in Toronto and Barrie, Ontario, and they're also online at csrbuilding.com. Go check those guys out. Are you interested in being famous on the Drywall podcast? Just give me a call or email me at info@frescoharmony.com, 505-400-9313. I'd love to talk to you, or maybe you know somebody that you think would be a good interviewee on the podcast. I'd love to hear from them as well. But for now, Greg Strebe and his amazing tale of woe on this, the 67th podcast of the Drywall podcast. Let's get into it. We have Greg Strebe out of Springfield, Missouri. Misery.
Yeah, lived here, I think.
Sure, I've heard it. Yeah. I had a friend in Crested Butte who called it misery. Whatever. I don't think I've set foot in the state of Missouri.
Yeah, it's there's in our area. I always tell people the best things to see is Andy's Ice Cream and Bass Pro Shops.
Okay.
That's in Missouri. We've also got Branson that's pretty close by too, but yeah.
So how did we find out about each other? You wanted to be on the podcast.
Yes.
Yes. See, okay, so if you're listening, this is proof. If you want to be on the podcast and you reach out to me, dreams do come true.
Yeah. Yeah, so I recently got back into the trade, and I'm one of those people that whatever I'm interested in, it's about being invested in it, learning more about it, and everything. So the thought came to me one day, hey, I wonder, are there any podcasts out there? So went to Spotify, searched up Drywall, and you were the first on the list, and started listening to a few casts, and
cool.
I got interested. That's actually how I learned about Fresco Harmony. So
right.
So I think that I don't remember the name of the episode, but you're talking to somebody who had a background in plaster. So naturally, Fresco Harmony came up in that. I'm sure it comes up in off podcasts, but
yeah. We talk about it. I mean, I try not to dwell on it or anything, but that is, and if you're listening, that's why I talk about Fresco Harmony a lot, is because that topic of conversation segues into a lot of different avenues of the drywall conversation. So some of it is shameless promotion, but texturing is an interesting conversation, and coloring joint compound is an interesting conversation, and it's not the mundane, day to day, box tool, running the box tool, or, finishing to a level 3. It's something kind of interesting that I can sprinkle over the top of the podcast to keep it interesting.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I think I recently got to play around with. I've been ordering some product, and it seems like an interesting medium. Got my feet wet. Saw, what the goals are with it. 100% coverage, right? Because you're going to be applying. You're going to have that final color, so it'd be important rather that coverage rather than like a skip trowel, that kind of a thing. But
right. We'll get into the drywall conversation, but I want to establish Greg as a unique interviewee on the podcast. You specifically reached out because you were like, I have an interesting story, which always piques my interest. You worked for, and we'll kind of go back, we'll jump around a little bit. You worked for Amazon. You were in the trade, and then you got out of the trade because of your specialty in tech. Is that correct?
Yeah. So, interestingly, I always loved doing drywall, and I like working with my hands. I like, you know, doing high quality craftsmanship, and always enjoyed it. I got out in 2007 when it was, in the middle of winter. I was carting around all these space heaters. Was in a difficult marriage at the time, and just was kind of burned out, I guess, right, a little bit, and just went over to Expedia that was hiring at the time. That's how I got my foot in the door in the tech field. So I just started out there and kind of moved my way up into the company and worked there for 15 years. And then
real quick, when did you start in the drywall trade?
Sure.
Let's talk about that before you left, and we'll talk a little bit about why you left. But you got into the drywall trade because you must have some education as well, right?
Actually, interestingly, no. In the tech field,
okay.
I was self-taught, so I just I'm really curious and stubborn, right? People think I'm smart. I think it's more because I'm stubborn.
Okay.
But,
okay.
Rewinding as you requested to how I got into the trade. I was working at MCI at the time as like a telemarketer, and they were filing bankruptcy, so I was going to a local church, and somebody was like, hey, I'm a drywaller, I need help. And I'm like, I need work. So I started off in the trade as spotting nails for somebody.
How old were you at that point?
I must have been 18 or 19. So I've got over 20 years experience. So I'm
okay. 18 or 19, that must have been we're maybe close to the same age. You look maybe a little younger. 99, but maybe 2003, 2001.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So worked under him for really less than a year before I got out on my own. We were working for this main drywall contractor, or subcontractors, and the main contractor kept coming across me, working at like 4 a.m, 5 a.m, sanding out these houses. Don't ask why I was showing up that early. I don't think that was an expectation. I just was either trying to get ahead or whatever reason. But he kept coming across, delivering materials, and he's like, man, you're a hard worker. You ought to come to work for me someday.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I did. He offered to sell me some used production tools. So right out the gate, I was owning a set of production tools. He gave deep discount. I mean, he had these things laying around in his garage or something. So I started off with like a 8-inch box, 10-inch box, pump handles.
Okay. This was your original boss, or is this somebody that headhunted you from the job?
Yeah, he was the contractor we were working for that headhunted me to come and work for him directly. He was a drywall contractor. We were the subs for him. So he actually
Okay.
his wing and showed me his way of doing drywall, which
Okay,
was
so he wanted you to be one of his sub minions. He saw
right.
potential enough to be a sub minion. He was like, dude, you need to like be. And now at that point in time, do you start your own company as a sub for this contractor?
Yeah, effectively, I think that's what every subcontractor is in a nutshell, and I think that that's how they should treat it. Right? Is
Yeah.
you are so
You're
very
you're a business.
your business, right? So I don't think I had that mindset then, but I kind of learned that from him, right? He was very business minded. He was very
Cool.
efficient in the way that he did things. He just kind of taught me a lot of different things about business, about efficiency, about keeping the job site clean, about
Okay.
pride in your work. How to really level up the work that you're doing to a high quality product. Yeah.
Sounds like a great mentorship early on out of the gate. He wasn't like, oh, this guy works hard. I'm going to keep a foot on him, pay him as little as possible, and squeeze as much work out of him as I can. He saw your value and wanted to exploit that value, pay you better, show you the ropes, teach you
Yeah.
the rules of the game. That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had
So
a boss do that too. So also for everyone out there that bashes the new person who's trying to who's a good worker that is trying to better themselves in this trade, take note, man. You treat somebody good, you have loyalty for life. If you're trying to just squeeze productivity out of a worker, I feel that's not a good route personally.
yeah, yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, for sure.
Cool. So you have so he sold you a set of tools. Did you pay for them all up front, or did he like put you on the tool payment plan? It sounds like he was smart. He had like a system for that.
Yeah, I don't remember. It's probably a payment plan. I doubt I had money just out the gate.
Right.
But yeah, I got the first set from him and just really learned how to dial in. I was running them before I went over to him. Just I was using the previous contractor's tool set.
Okay. Okay. And what kind of tools were you running at the time?
Uh, Everything but the bazooka. So I was a banjo taper and I was
Okay.
flat boxes,
Cool.
head roller, glazer.
Okay.
I didn't get into the bazooka taping until much later on when I went and bought a new set of tape tech tools.
Okay, all right. I was asking sort of the brand. What brand were you using at that time, or it didn't really matter because it was like
No,
it was
they
just
were tape tech.
they were all tape tech. So you start drywalling, subcontracting. Are you just doing the finishing? Are you doing finishing and texturing, or did they have a sub for hang, sub for finish, sub for texture?
Yeah, good question. Because I think at that time, or at least for this guy, we did everything. So we did
Okay.
all the way through to texture. And
What kind of texture? What kind of texture were you doing?
yeah, at that time, mostly just a stomp, just regular stomp, not even knocked down. And we were doing smooth level 4 on all the walls except for the closets in the garage. Regular orange peel splatter out of a hopper and compressor. Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah,
It's
it's really
it's my nemesis.
it's interesting because I think at that time that was the thought that I had a little bit ago was it seems like nowadays it's definitely segmented with you've got the finishing crew, you've got the hanging crew, and then you'll have a texture crew
Yeah.
and after. I think that's smart though because
Yeah.
you can you can have specialization in that, people that do one thing
Yeah.
really really and then also for the company, it gives them that opportunity to put that last, finishing touch on the product, make sure that everything's of high quality and textured out.
Yeah. When I was in Arizona, they had the boss would come around with the big hot spray machine check the job, spray it out, and put the finishing touch on it, which was kind of interesting. But cool. So you're doing drywall finishing, you're making money, and you're like, I can't stand this. I'm gonna go work for Expedia. How did that segue happen?
Yeah, it briefly mentioned earlier. It's just, I think it was the circumstantial that I was burnt out, right? Just where my life was at the time. We were about to have a baby soon, and it was in the middle of winter. I think the winter and the housing bust right there in 2007, and
Okay.
in our area for folks that aren't in this area. There was a freeze. So we get like what's called black ice around here, where
Yeah.
it's not snow, it's just kind of rainy, drizzly, and it just freezes everything. So you can walk across the grass right on top of ice. And
Yep.
it's just a harder environment to be excited about drywall in the middle of winter in general. But when
Right.
everything's frozen, we a lot of power lines were down, and we were working more in these rural areas, so we were having to work off of generators. And it's just I was a little bit depressed at the time because of those circumstances. So that's why I jumped ship, went to Expedia, and I was there for 15 years. Yeah.
Okay. And you said maybe you were getting a divorce at the time. So your
Yes.
wife was pregnant and you were getting a divorce? That sounds horrible.
Much later.
Okay, the
So
divorce came later. All right. Okay, so but you are having a new baby. You're how old are you at the time? 2007, 2008?
yes, so I was probably whatever the math is, 20, 23, 24.
Okay, you're still a baby.
So
You're like, what the hell am I doing with my life? My wife's over here having a baby. I'm good at tech. I can go get a job at Expedia doing God knows what. I mean, how did that come to be?
yeah, good follow-up question. So really the good at tech, I didn't really know that I was like good at it in the corporate world. I went from I just went into like a telemarketing position at Expedia, and
Okay.
then how I found out that I was good at like reporting and analytics and everything is, in a sales environment, everybody's like interested in what they're going to get paid out, how they're tracking and all of that. So there was all of these Excel spreadsheets running around, and I had some different ideas and calculations that I wanted to see, or a different way of looking at the data. And I went up to my manager and I'm like, "Hey, how do you write a formula in Excel?" So that was like, I always refer to that as like the catalyst of how
Okay.
I moved through. So he was like, "Well, you hit equals in a cell and you just start writing," and that was like the catalyst, and then it kind of snowballed from there.
So
So
you wanted to write a formula for in Excel for so you guys were using Excel and it was curious to you how this program operated?
yeah, and
Okay.
I think I just wanted to. I don't even remember at the time like what it was that was different that I wanted to see versus. I just wanted to like enhance the trackers that were already there, right? And then from there, like I mentioned, it's that curiosity and gumption part of my personality. It's like, well, how do I do this? How do I do this? How do I do this?
Yeah.
Uh, I'm either creating it on the fly or doing the research, asking people questions, and then over time you build like a knowledge set, and then it grows over time. So from there I started doing advanced programming with VBA, the programming language behind Excel. Got into
What does
automating.
Real quick, what does it mean to enhance the trackers? That was sort of one of your first tasks.
Yeah, just say for instance, there was a formula that told you what your payout is at a point in time. What I was trying to do was calculate if I continued my performance, like if I closed X amount of or sales today, and I continued that trend, what would my paycheck look like?
Yeah.
2 weeks, kind of a thing. So
Okay.
then that way you could put in like a goal. Okay, I want to make this $2,000 or whatever your sales goal was.
That's really smart.
It would spit out, okay, if you trended with this cancellation rate in this amount of sales,
Yeah.
what, how do you get there? So you need to target 10 sales a day or 15 sales a day. Or
Incentive.
if I was behind 2 days in a row, how do I get caught back up to stay on plan?
Okay, so this it was like kind of a kind of, you were brainstorming an idea for incentivization
Yes.
for Expedia telemarketers. Can you very quickly say what I would hear? Greg calls me on the phone with Expedia. Just give me the quick script.
You're pulling from old memory. I don't even
Yeah,
know.
come on,
Yeah.
man. You got it. It's in there. It's buried in there.
This is Greg Strebe with hotels.com.
Hi, Greg.
Get your reservation.
What do you
uh,
want? What do you want?
well, you called me. You called me. I
Oh,
you're interested in some hotel reservations. So, which hotel are you looking at? What kind of amenities are you looking
I
for?
don't know. Aren't they all the same?
Well, what are you planning to? Are you going on vacation or business, right? So, or if you're,
Okay.
and what kind of budget are you working with?
Sure. Okay. All right. All right. Cool. So you weren't cold calling. These were people looking up hotels.com, and they might call and they're inquiring into uh so that's kind of a slam dunk though for on a sales end, I would assume. That's a high rate
Yeah.
of retention.
Yeah, so the it's the typical sales pipeline, right? You're going to have a certain amount of volume. This even applies in what we do today with drywall and owning a
Sure.
business. You've got 33% that are just going to be no, right? You've got 33% that are going to be yes, and you've got 33% that are going to be on the fence, right? So your
Yeah.
job to get through the no's fast, get through to the yeses fast, and then where you want to spend your time and effort is on those people that are on the fence and try to convince them.
Okay. This is fantastic education and background for Fresco Harmony, as we've discussed, because it's sales. I don't think people realize like you're selling something to the client. Like the guy I talked to last night was like, yeah, that I wasn't even going to show the builder these samples that I took time to make.
Mhm.
And the builder's like, hell yeah, dude, can you do the whole house? Like he didn't, the sample sold the job.
Right.
The guy's like, well, how do you do it? So a lot of the drywallers, it's kind of like it's built in. Sales are built in. It's like they need a drywaller. You go in and drywall the house. This is like getting people out of their comfort zone a little bit, where you're selling something new, and you maybe have to risk someone saying no, or I don't give a shit about that, or it doesn't work. You're stupid. Get away from me. Like you have to
Yeah.
be able to take that.
Yeah, I think almost a similar situation happened just yesterday. So I'm working on a historic home where we're smoothing out this old plaster, real heavy texture, and the customer wants smooth walls. But that on that job site is where I built or made that sample for Fresco Harmony, and it's just sitting over there on the wall, drying,
Right.
or was totally in, and the homeowner pops in. And I think what's important with sales is it needs to be part of your everyday conversation, right? You don't have to look at it like
Uh,
it doesn't need to be like, I'm going to go into this conversation and I'm going to have to be afraid of being turned down. If it's part of your everyday conversation, it comes natural. So the homeowner comes in, I've got this sample, and I'm like, hey, I know that we're smoothing out your walls, but I just happen to be working on this sample for another customer. But I just wanted to throw it out there. This is a new product that I'm working on. You don't have to paint it when you're done. It has a look of texture, but it also has a look of imperfect smooth at the same time. So I just had that quick conversation. Now they weren't interested. That's okay.
yeah. Yeah.
His wife really wants that smooth, one
Mm,
color, solid color wall. that's fine, right?
Yeah.
But it's not if it's not just you're excited about it and having the conversation. I
Yeah.
mean, I'll be talking to friends, just totally unrelated to business, and it'll just pop into my brain. Hey, there's this exciting thing that I'm kind of playing with on the side,
Yeah.
and then that turns into another conversation, right? And you're
Yeah.
like sitting
Yeah.
without trying almost, right?
Yeah, and again, like we were talking about at the beginning, it's kind of it's a cool conversation because it's unique. There are no color joint compound systems on the market, so it's kind of a fun conversation. I've had it too. I've had designers be like, "Oh, I like texture. I like that texture in paint," and I'm like,
Mhm.
"What planet are you from? And you're a designer?" Like, okay, it doesn't have to jive with me, and I won't tell them that texture's stupid and they're stupid. I'll just be like, "Oh, okay." The conversation's over, like like they'll let you know. We'll move
Right,
on to something else. Just like there's been lots of interviewees where we don't talk about Fresco Harmony at all. They're not into it. And I'm not
right,
going to. It's the 33% that it's like, that's fine. No, not everybody has to be into it. And I think that's a good sales attitude because I'm not selling you anything. We can either have the conversation or not. You
right.
know,
Yeah,
I know there's value in it. It's everybody's different.
and it kind of goes right back to that 33% thing with sales, right? If you're just having it as an everyday conversation and it's just part of your everyday topics, you're going to talk to 33% of people who are just going to be like, no, not interested. 33% of the people are going to be like, oh, tell me more. And then,
Yeah.
you're going to have a
Yeah.
percentage that are going to be like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know that I wanted an accent wall.
Yeah, the on the fence people are like, can you do that? Can you go over painted texture with mud? Is that possible? Or don't you get cat eye, or don't you get the pock marks or cat eyes? Like all of that, and then that really segues because I love answering the questions too. But I want to get into Amazon. I'm going to grab a little more coffee.
I like it. Even before social media really took off. I've always just thought, like how do you talk about drywall? Because I think there's a lot of unique individuals out there that are doing different things that have different ideas. I
Yeah.
One guy that I know is always he's always talking about, man. You don't see any other trade that's always like inventing new ways to become more efficient, to do things different, to save money or be more productive. I don't know if that's true. I'm sure that there's other trades and other things that do that, but
Sure.
look at all the tools that are.
You
Look at all the
feel
different.
like more so than other trades, drywall is inventive and maybe creative in that way. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a lot of different ways to do it.
When I first came across the bazooka versus the banjo, I'm like, wow, the bazooka, one day banjos are going to be obsolete. But look at it now. There's like 15 different types of banjos that you can get.
Yeah,
It's interesting, right? And there are times
that's
where a banjo,
funny.
you know,
That interests me too. Every time I see a new banjo coming out, I'm like, another bazooka trainer.
yeah,
But I worked with people that just use the banjo and were really fast at it. You know, it wasn't my early on. I feel like we have this weird intrinsic thing which makes us think that our way is the only way. I'm not sure why that is. It's like built into the drywall mentality, and I'm not immune from that. Uh, I talk about it on the last podcast. We're still learning new things. At the end of the podcast, I have a segment called Pearls of Wisdom where I ask for Greg to bestow a pearl of wisdom upon the drywall community. But I might change that to tell me one thing that's new in the drywall industry that you've learned in the last 2 weeks that has blown your mind, that where you were doing it one way and you didn't think it could be done better, you switched, and now you're doing it a new way and it's way better. Like
and
that might be the new question.
Oh, pearl of wisdom. Yeah, I would say it actually ties into what you just said about my way or the highway thing. I like to I don't want to ever be that way. I mean, I probably am in a lot of ways. My apprentice would probably say this about me, but yet at the same time, I want to be open to learning things new. And I think what that goes back to is humility, right? You got to be you got to be humble, and
Yeah.
about what it is that you can do, and because otherwise, if you're not learning, right, I think things stop being exciting, right?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. That's okay.
Yeah. In fact, I'll just leave it with this: is I always sidelight my walls, so I've got this really powerful flashlight if I'm doing smooth work, and I call
Okay.
it my humility stick.
Your buddy stick?
My humility stick,
Your
right?
humility stick.
Because you might put forth your best effort, trying to smooth everything out, but when you really light up those walls, you start to see stuff that you thought your wall was great, and then you light it up and you're like, oh, there's a touch up, there's a scratch, there's a thing I can improve upon. So it's a nice way to
Nice.
back to being humble.
Okay. And then do you specifically have a system or a technique or a tool that you've started using in the last 2 weeks that has changed your perspective on drywall, where you didn't think that you were like, oh no, I do it this way. I've always done it this way. And then finally you tried something and it changed the way you do it. I'll
Oh,
get better at asking that
no,
question.
no, you're good. I'm trying to think of something different to say than Fresco Harmony, right? But I
Oh
will
yeah,
just
yeah.
so Fresco Harmony is like the first easiest thing that comes to mind. So,
But
in
fresco wouldn't really fall into that category because you hadn't thought all of your life that like you can't color joint compound. Like maybe you have, but
okay.
it's not shifting your perception on something in the trade where you thought this is the only way to do it. And like maybe you were using a 6 inch, like, and then a bunch of people use a 4 inch to wipe tape or do certain things. Like I'm a 6 inch guy, but a lot of people use a 5 inch or a 4 inch. I've never tried a 5 inch or 4 inch because I know in my heart of hearts using a 6 inch is proper, and that's the way I learned. And there's no need to use a 5 or try a 5 or a 4, like something like that. But then I try a
Yeah,
4 inch and I'm like, oh, this is way better for angles, you
yeah,
know.
yeah. I can't. It's hard to answer that. So I know. I mean, I could probably come up with different examples, but I don't think it has the depth and meaning that you're looking for. But
Sure.
the my apprentice is struggling with, well, this particular job. Imagine, real heavy plaster, and
Yeah.
uh, the corners are almost not 90, right? They're like almost rounded because of that heavy texture.
Oh, yeah.
I'm trying to give her tasks so that she learns drywall, and yet I she can get stuff accomplished, and yeah, I can also get stuff accomplished, right? Trying to maximize productivity. And I've always shied away from those knives. They coat both sides of the 90-degree angle at the same time, right? It kind of looks
Yeah.
like a, yeah.
Yeah.
I've always back to that pride
Yeah.
humility thing.
Yeah.
uh, I've always thought, I I can do my 5 inch or my 6 inch knife down the angle, and I run one side at a time. But my
Yeah. Yeah.
thought process was, you know what, I'm gonna go and get one of those because she's new, and she's gonna struggle with that. But I need it done. I need it done now, right? I'm like, I'm
Yeah.
gonna just gonna go get this tool, and I'm gonna get those little rollers for painting, like the inside of the corner. They kind of look like a ball. I'm
Yeah.
like, let's mix up this mud, dip this ball into the angle, pull that down there, and then run that 90-degree knife on there. Never owned one of those things, but with her in mind, I went ahead and bought that. And then I'm doing it myself, teaching her. I hadn't done it before. I'm like, you know what?
This is
This
pretty
is all
slick.
right. can't run my roller and glazer or anything on this thing because
Oh, because
it's
my next question was going to be, well, why not just teach her the roller and
oh,
glazer? But like, because the angles aren't square.
yeah, and they're so heavy texture. I mean, we've got them mostly smoothed out now, but it just wasn't going to come out right. So I needed a
I'll
fast, a lot of mud in there and smooth it out.
would you use like an applicator tube also to apply the mud?
I don't have an applicator too, but
Okay.
it's thought. I'm open to that. But this was a quick way, right, with that
Yeah.
roller, and it
Yeah.
goes right to that corner.
I've
Uh,
seen people doing it that way too. I've seen people applying mud with a roller, with a weird roller,
yeah,
like paint
yeah,
roller too.
yeah, exactly what it is. Yeah. So
Um,
that kind of answered the question, like let's try
Absolutely.
something different. Let's be innovative, right? And
Yeah.
yeah,
I'll never use one of those tools. Just to put a bow, just to put a
yeah,
bow on that tool. They used to use it. Had a stint in mobile home manufacturing, and there was a dude that was hyper fast with that tool, and he would do all the corners with that tool, and then he'd feather the edge, and he had a little technique, and he all his job was corners, and he
yeah.
used one of those tools, and he was super fast with it. They used in the mobile homes, they used Quickset. It was all Quickset. There was a mud bitch, and all he did was mix Quickset joint compound all day long. And the dudes would yell from the floors of the house, "More mud, motherfucker!" And and this dude,
Yeah.
he's carrying
Yeah,
the mud.
yeah.
Poor guy. He was like covered head to toe and like powder and white mud and slop and just like, oh my gosh,
My
that was quite an experience.
my apprentice calls that the penguin waddle when you're going upstairs. Hey, that
Yeah.
quick set thing comment there reminds me of I worked on one of those extreme makeover homes one time. That was really, we had 24 hours to hang, tape, fill, skim, and texture the house. So we're literally taping walls that are being hung. And it was all quick set.
Yeah.
There was like 50 different people. I mean, people were just crawling all over the walls and ceilings, and it is a lot of quick set. The job looked terrible. I mean,
Yeah.
when you're trying to do that with all quick set, it came out terrible. But you got a house in 7 days, and it was on TV. But
Yeah. You got a shitty house in 7 days.
help people need, right? So there are some pros and cons to that. But yeah.
Definitely, definitely. And also shines a light on the construction industry, brings awareness to what it is that we do, kind of. Okay. That was a long segue away from our shift from Expedia to Amazon. How in the world did you get to Amazon? And to preface this conversation, I will say that what piqued my interest is that you mentioned that you made a gang of money, I believe is the term you used. You were making lots of money, but it wasn't enough money to keep you away from the beautiful joint compound. So you had to quit all of that money, your mansion in the hill and your Lamborghini, and come back to the drywall trade because Amazon sucked your soul away from you.
That is a great summary. Thank you. You had it all. So yeah, so I get to ask this. So I could probably go back to Expedia today. I know I've got a lot of good network good network of people there.
Sure.
But I think when you've been with a company, you've been working with the same technologies, you've been working with the same data sets, it kind of gets a little bit boring, and you want to do something new. I'm always looking for that, even in roles that I'm in. And then I got a phone call from my manager that used to be my manager at Expedia from Amazon. It was like, "Hey, we've got an opening on this team. I think you'd be a great fit for it. I wouldn't be your manager, but I would be your peer." So that's kind of how the conversation started. And then to the money side, definitely a very handsome paycheck,
Yeah.
if you would. And part of the package, so when you get into these tech fields, oftentimes, up to 30-40% of your gross salary is like tied up in restricted stock units, right? So I was going.
What does that mean? Restricted stock units.
So if you're making 100,000 a year,
Okay.
you get a 20,000 stock package. That stock is stock into the company, and you can't generally with these programs sell it right away. So you get it as a one lump sum at the end of the year or quarterly. So what was happening is my stock was like locked up for like over a 4-year period before you could fully
Beautiful.
get 100% of it out. So going over to Amazon, there was a sign-on bonus for the first 2 years where my stock package was actually as part of my paycheck. So when you came out of that 2 years, you were making that salary that you're collecting on your regular paycheck, and at the end of 2 years, you were also accumulating that stock like you regularly would have.
Okay.
So at the end of 2 years, you could actually begin to supplement, even though you lost your sign-on bonus. You could already have vested stock to be able to sell. So it's like a win-win for anybody that's going over, and that's what attracted me, right?
Okay.
That's that. So, did you want me to go right into the soul sucking part, or did that answer the question on the money?
No, it does. I hate to ask, but I'm curious how much, because a lot of money is esoteric. Like,
Right.
how much is a lot of money? Are we talking, is it over 250K?
No, it's right around 180,000.
Okay, that's decent. That's decent. You're still middle class. I mean, as sad as that sounds. So, okay, so we're talking 180 without the nightmare of running a drywall crew. That is decent money, to me, probably to a lot of people.
In our area, it's pretty low cost of living too. So there's a
Ours
lot of.
too. Yeah. So you have money you can have a car, you can have a nice house, you can have, pretty much whatever you want at that point. However, it only costs you your soul.
Yeah.
And some hours. But at that point, Amazon owns you. How long did it take you to realize that they were sucking your soul away and that it wasn't worth the amount of money and stock options that you were getting and that you had to come back to drywall?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's like a complicated. It's like mixed with emotion and everything,
Yeah.
right? It's
Yeah.
complicated how to answer that, but within that short period of time, the hiring manager that I went over to wound up leaving. Very soon after, the person that referred me over, that was my peer, went back to Expedia, and then we had a couple other people on the team leave as well. And it's long hours. They kind of, it's hard to explain. It's like nobody says you have to work a lot of hours for them. It's just like a mindset, and it's like the expectation of what you need to produce. You come out feeling like you've got to work, right? And then you wind up. Oh, go ahead. No,
That's a testament to Amazon, the fact that they can pull that efficiency out of people, right? It's not just you.
right?
They're pulling that. They have to. They're a monster. They have to pull that efficiency out of every single person that works there. Hence the carrot of these stock options, and we'll pay out these stock options in whatever way that we see fit. It's fascinating to me. I can't imagine what Bezos deals with on a daily basis. Any of those guys, like Elon Musk. Like, I'm always like, what does their day look like? They get up and it's like emails, 5 different like assistants barraging them with information, and it's like, that doesn't even sound fun to me. Like, no way. Like, if somebody was like, hey Nick, do you want to run Amazon? I'd be like, no, I'm good with Fresco, thanks. It goes back to the soul sucking, like, or in the film industry they call it golden handcuffs.
Yeah, so working lots of hours, the weight of the world on your shoulders, different expectations So it wound up being that within that short period of time, I had many managers because again, people leaving. I'm assuming without having interviewed each of them for the similar reasons why I left, burnout, lots of hours. There was about a 3-month period where it was just the current manager that I had and me on the team when we had about 5 to 6 people before, yet the expectations are the same. So then you have even more pressure, right? Even more expectation to be producing and serving the people that you're building reports and analytics for.
Okay.
So then you've got friends and family saying, "Man, you're not the same anymore. Like you look like you hold on your shoulders. You don't smile as much. You're not going to church as much. You're not you know used to hang out. All of those things." And
how many hours a day would you say you're working at that point?
For sure, 15 easy. Sometimes 6 to 7 days a week. Yeah.
It sounds really similar to the film model.
Yeah, and just one little call out there's nothing on paper or anybody saying you have to work these hours. It's just that there's something about that mindset and that pressure.
And the money. Don't kid yourself. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
You're making good money. You got a nice car. You got a mortgage. You're taking care of a family. Now, at this point, are you still with the wife when you're?
We divorced a long time ago. Met my current wife.
Okay.
And I think we've been married 12 years now. So I have, pausing on family here, I've got 2 biological children with the first marriage. And then we did foster to adopt for a while, wound up adopting. And then we continued to adopt his siblings as they came along. So we have 5 kids total.
Good for you. Wow. That's, kudos. That's really cool. So you adopted 3 kiddos. Mm-hmm. What are the ages of all the kids? The 2, but then the 3 adopted.
Yes. So the younger, start with them and then we'll get to the older. So and I'm sure if my wife listens to this, she's going to be correcting me if I get their ages wrong, but
that's okay.
3, 4, 7, 14, and 16. The 2 oldest are the 14 and 16-year-old are the biological.
Okay. All right. So the adopted are 3, 4, and 7.
Yes.
Crazy.
3, 4. Yeah.
And
so they were all,
and they're siblings.
Yeah. They're all siblings.
Yeah. Wow, boy, they hit the jackpot. Or you hit the jackpot one way or another. But
yeah, they grow where you don't know that you have room to grow your heart. I mean, it just naturally.
Yeah, that's so cool. It gives me it just makes me feel good to hear that. Okay, so your stint at Amazon was a period of time, 2007 to when? And
I'm sorry.
I want to hear the brain process when you were like, you looked around one day. Take me through the day when you had the epiphany that you're like, I don't have to. You know what, Jeff Bezos? Hey, Jeff, I'm done.
Yeah, excuse me. So, yeah, good. You're good. You're good at like tweezing out these little questions here. So,
hey Jeff, you got the red button, the red termination button.
Yeah. So, I had tried to resign a couple different times, and they kind of talked me into staying. And by the way, so 15 years at Expedia, and I was actually at Amazon for 1 year. So that just a clean time frame there. So I tried to resign, I'd meant, express my feelings about being burnout, the expectations, all of those things. Cause I like clear, open, honest communication with team members, family, and my management. And they were like, look, we understand. Why don't you come out to Seattle, do some networking, maybe try to get into another team, that kind of a thing.
Ooh, nice. They immediately went into the sales, like, don't let this guy go. Don't let him go. We got to keep him on the hook.
Yeah. So did the trip out to Seattle, and that's just a weird thing, because sometimes because I'd never even met my manager in person, and then you meet these people. Everybody's different in person, right? You've got
Yeah.
the manager like trying to get all this productivity out of you, but then you meet them in person, you're like, oh man, I like this guy.
Yeah.
So come back. So that had happened in like October. Also during that time frame where it's just me on the team, we hire some new folks. Fast forward to December, and I put in a resignation again. So I backed out the first resignation in October. Put in another resignation. I said, look, I'm confident I can get another tech job in 2 months. So I put in like a
Love it.
60-day
Greg's
notification.
Greg's playing hardball with the now all of a sudden you have a file says Greg Strebe, and there's like a team of people that are preventing you from leaving Amazon. I
So
see it. They're having meetings about Greg. How do we keep this guy?
yeah. So I put in a 60-day notification, and again have some of those similar conversations. And I'm like, no, whether I have another job or not, I'm like, I need a break. I have to
Okay. All
have to
right.
recoup my soul. So this happens. We have 3 new people on the team, and I'm going into Christmas vacation, and we've got like this house rental on top of a mountain. Have no idea. I think it's listed with Wi-Fi, but I have no idea what the connectivity is. Remember, these roles that I'm in are all remote, right? So you got to have strong connectivity. I'm reporting to people outside of my state or outside of the country at times, and I'm like, hey, who's going to be there to support the 3 new folks? They're brand new. While there's these expectations for all of our customers, and we're both on vacation, the manager and I. And it wasn't said, again, there's that tricky thing. It's like, it wasn't said, it's for sure that you're the guy that's going to be on point, but it's kind of like implied, right? So
Okay.
I felt, again, that pressure, right, to be on call while I'm on a mountain with a laptop, and no idea what this connectivity is. So I go to my wife. This is, by the way, this is not the first vacation where I felt this pressure. I'm taking my laptop, but this is Christmas vacation,
Okay.
and I'm like, Natalie, I'm gonna have to take my laptop. I'm gonna have to at least be on call if these guys have any questions for how to find this in a database, how to do this, how to automate
Okay.
this. I need to be on
Natalie
point.
Natalie loved
And
hearing
just
that.
immediately
Right.
burst into tears. Just, I mean, total
Yes.
breakdown. I mean, everybody, friends and family, kids, wife, are feeling the pressure that I'm on, almost, in a lot of ways, because I'm not the happy-go-lucky Greg anymore.
Yeah.
So, I'm like, she's in a puddle on the floor, and I'm trying to pick her back up, right?
Eee.
And I'm like, Natalie, we already have a notification in that we're resigning. I'm like, I'm just going to resign now. I'll just resign right this moment. So I went back to my desk. And by the way, this is the background that these companies. This is my my tech
Perfect.
background that I worked in front of.
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, this hasn't changed. I've already got a notification in, and this is where I'm at. This is what I'm feeling. I'm continuing to feel these things. At the end of me writing this email, I'm logging out. I'm shutting down the computer, and I'm done. And that's how I ended my day. So it's that expectation to work on Christmas vacation. Of course, HR, my manager, his manager's manager, of course, they've got a call to make sure that this is the decision that I want to make. Then they're like, you know, sit on this for a minute. We'll call you back. They call back. Or is this for sure what you want to do? There's no going back. And then they inform me that they've accepted my resignation. So that's kind of where it was. We were just done, emotionally drained, not going to go into another vacation, not feeling that pressure during family time. So
I don't know if I should say you seem pretty prim and proper, but I was like, Greg probably got laid that night. We don't need to go into the
I think,
details, but let's just say Natalie was happy with your decision.
oh yeah, I mean, it's like it was an immediate weight off my shoulders. I mean, I was
Yeah.
smiling again. I mean, it was just like total energy boost, total
Uh,
energy boost.
crazy,
Uh,
crazy. Very cool. So you're
so
like, I'm gonna go drywall again. I
mhm.
liked the carefree, physicality, energy of drywall. I'm gonna go back to that.
Yeah, so will get into that. Yeah, again, great job at tweezing these things out. So
Yeah, yeah.
I'm start up a conversation. I just had I wanted a break from technology. I tried to even spin up my own consulting gig on the side, but I just couldn't bring
Okay.
myself. I no longer had that creative energy in front of a computer, and that's kind of what you need for those types of roles. And I just, even putting together the website and everything, it just felt too much of the same, and I just couldn't bring myself to it. So
Okay.
started a conversation with Convoy of Hope. Still, I mean, as far as I know, it's not a closed door, but it's a possibility that sometime in the future that I might work for them. It's a nonprofit company. Obviously wouldn't be making those higher wages, but I've got an idea in my mind and what we can survive off of, and that's and I just
What's Convoy of Hope, real quick?
they are a company that their goal or mission is solve world hunger. That's what they're about. They go into these disaster areas and provide food, provide water. That's one tiny component of what they do. What they're really about is actually going into a community and establishing connections with the community and providing long-lasting, self-sustaining systems, so that when they leave, and by the way, they will when they establish that connection with that community, they will not leave until they are self-sustaining, until they are at a point where they're able to provide for themselves. So some of that is systems that build commerce, build so that they can have money, or build crops and be able to support themselves in a lot of different ways. So,
Okay. Very
and
cool.
they partner with the local governments and set all of that up prior to just going in and working with the community. So that's I was like, you know what, if I'm going to do anything, I'm going to provide that data engineering, that reporting and analytics for that. So, or for this company, this is the only company I've put in an application with since leaving Amazon. And it's been this conversation started in December. Every
Okay.
once in a while, so then you look at nonprofit, they've got to justify somebody's wages, right? So it's really easy if you're a giving director and if you're looking for more donations, really easy to justify those wages, because they're going to be bringing that back by getting the dollars, by getting more giving dollars. But for a support role like a data engineer, you've got to go through a lot of hoops to make that justification.
Okay.
So that's why it's a long process. And that anybody that I've known that has gone there have always said it's a very long, drawn out process to get on with them. So
Okay.
during that, I just take off for 3 months. I would never ever take back not working for those 3 months.
No.
Just spending time with the family, reconnecting with friends, reconnecting with people. But at the
Awesome.
end of 3 months, our savings is like, right.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm like, I need to generate some coin. I need to generate some money. So I started with a local construction company, Cardoza Construction. I call them up. I'm like, look, I've got drywall experience. You can put me in with any crew, and I can I can do whatever. I know how to run the production tools, all of those things.
Okay.
So started with them, and during that
They're like,
time,
when can you start?
yeah. And the feedback that I got is we've never had anybody come off the street that says
No.
that they know how to do drywall and actually know, to the degree that I know how to do
Yeah.
drywall.
Let this
Uh,
be known to all you drywallers out there too. Know your value. If you are a journeyman drywaller and you know how to run the tools, you are a valuable asset to any drywall company. If somebody is treating you poorly, just know from the Drywall podcast that you can go work for a different company, and one that'll treat you good and that will be happy to have your service. There, I said it.
yeah, I agree. So I'm working with them, and all that was to slow down our savings. It was not. I knew I wasn't going to make enough with them to get where I needed to be to provide for a family of seven effectively.
Okay.
So single income as well. So I just start doing what I know how to do, right? I'm like, I'm back into the trade. Let's start reinvesting in it. So all of my tools that I previously had, unfortunately, were stolen at some point in time that they were in storage. We don't know when they were stolen, but when I went to go, look, get some tools for like a little project that I was doing, they were gone. So I knew about that years ago. So I basically kind of started from ground zero a little bit and just reinvested into the trade while I still had those funds, right? Because we had a pool of money. And I just had a friend from Chicago, journeyman finisher that was back in this area. He knew I was back in the drywall. I'm like, hey, let's spin things back up. So the Finishing Touch Drywall is just a spin up of what I had in the past. It's the same company name, still registered with the government as such. It was in expired status, so I just revived all. And then that way I can make money simultaneously. And I tried to. I would love to work with Cardo, continue working with them. They're a great company. Love everything that they do. They put out good work, but at the end of the day, I needed to work on my own work to make enough money. So I was very open with them, let them know, even when I started day one, hey, my long-term goal is this with Convoy, but I can help you and I need the money. So that's how that conversation started. And they also knew all along the way that I was kind of spinning up my own thing. And then I had to break the news. Look, we're having to like babysit all of our bank accounts now. We're just getting down to the bottom of the barrel. I need to generate more money. So I said in like 2 weeks or whatever, I need to be working on my own projects. And I already had those projects going, right?
Did you give them an option to hire you as a subcontractor at that point? How can we work together type of thing?
And you're good. You really like to dig in. Yes. That was my intent, even starting with them. So that I'm assuming when you've got an established network of finishers, you try to keep them busy and give them the priority, right? So I think that was a little bit, maybe a little bit of, they have an established labor amount that they're paying, and I don't want to unpack that too much anymore. I don't know what their labor costs were, but I'm assuming that for whatever reason, it just never worked out that I was able to do piecework for them. So
okay, fine.
Yeah.
Totally fine. That aspect of the trade is interesting to me. Keeping labor force, paying piece rate, how our industry gets paid, what we get paid. That's all fascinating to me. And I know it's fascinating to our listeners because this is an undervalued trade. So to give you like some background on why I dig in there a little bit, it's important, I think, to the listeners, to myself. I also struggle with devaluing myself. I think we all do. It's just kind of built in. I've given a lot of Fresco Harmony away, It's just the nature of the beautiful walls, like really beautiful walls, me doing them and me being on the wall being like, I'm not making enough money, for this gorgeous, I don't care that it's color joint compound. This is what I'm doing is extraordinary and I should get paid more,
Yeah.
We've all had that conversation.
It's tough. In fact, during those 16 years that I was out of the trade, I still did the trade. I did it for free for friends and family, and just kind of,
Yeah.
project. Hey,
Yeah.
I need a drywall, or hey, I know how to do drywall, kind of a thing. So I never
Yeah.
really stopped doing drywall. And I don't know, that connection with it. I never lost that connection. On the topic of piecework, you're basically putting a dollar value amount on what you think your value is,
That's
right?
right. That's
So
right.
I think what helps me with that is the level of pride and effort that you're willing to put into it. So I look at it like, you're only as good as the last job that you did, and it takes, meaning you could do a hundred jobs really well, and if somebody found something that they didn't like about what you did on the last job, that's what people are going to remember. And especially with social media these days, it's what, somebody giving you a bad review, right? So how I determine the value is, I tell customers, yes, I might be higher than what somebody else, some of your other bids have been, but we cover the floors, right? We clean up. I'll do a cleanup at the end of the job, but I'll even have a cleanup crew that'll actually come in and really clean up everything.
Mm.
So it's like you're offering a service beyond just your skilled work, and that's how I look at it. I don't
I
want it
like
to sound
that.
I don't want it to sound too cliche, but it's almost like an experience for the customer. You're giving them an experience, you're giving them a service, something that they need from you, but the level of effort and pride that you go into somebody's home. I mean, you have to look at it like this. Somebody invited you into their home to do work, right?
Hmm.
It's not always about new construction. You might be
Yeah.
doing a remodel, might be
Yeah.
doing patch and repair. So you cover everything up, you mask everything off. Even if you are like really awesome at being clean with your pans and knives, just them seeing that everything is covered, that all the trim is covered, that you take pride in cleaning all of that up. And then what we do is we even have a cleanup crew come in after us, and because the fact is that last day you're probably still putting mud on the walls or still sanding. You're trying to clean up to get out so that you can get paid, and you might miss something because you're focused on getting, kind of like getting all of your stuff out of there.
Hmm.
And the reality is, no matter how good you are, you might have missed a drop of mud. You might have missed some dust that accumulated in the windowsills, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So I even after I send in the cleanup crew, I will go back and look at the job for quality. And it's that, that's the service, that's the experience that you're giving to the customer. So when you're packaging up your value, if you package it up as full service package, you can charge those higher rates.
No. ERR Drywall. Daniel Osborne and I talk about that. He's from Florida. Very early episode, but he charges like a premium. It's a pretty good episode, but we get into that. And he's kind of a Christian guy, doesn't cuss, no cussing on the job. They got a swear jar. They, clean clothes. He doesn't want his guys showing up all gritty. That to warrant those prices, he shows up in a certain way, presents himself in a certain way, and handles his business in a certain way. Yeah, agreed. We can probably be better. You want more money, maybe ask yourself, how am I showing up? How am I showing up not just on the job, but in the world?
Yeah, it's a presentation. Everything that you do on that job is a product, right? You're selling your service, but you're also selling you. You're selling your business. You're selling yourself.
Yeah.
That's really what all sales is. You're actually selling yourself and what you provide. So there is a lot of presentation to that. But it also, at the end of the day, you might look at it like you're covering up and it's extra covering up something. But at the end of the day, it does keep the house cleaner. It does protect the customer's home.
Yeah.
We even, whenever we sand, we'll create a negative airflow system to pull all that dust out of the air, pipe it outside of the house.
Cool.
We as soon as that's done, while the wall system is set up, we'll vacuum out all the dust. All of that previous to us opening up that bubble. We want to make sure, even after you turn off that system, there's no potential for that to still cross-contaminate and get out of the area that you're actually doing that dusty work in.
Cool. So you tweak out about the dust, which is really smart. Even in fresco, there's still some shedding, I call it, like you got to sculpt the corners, and there's still going to be a little bit of dust, not quite as much because we're not sanding, we're not grinding on the walls, which is sweet.
Yes.
But there's a little bit of dander and stuff, when we get done with a job. For
sure. Yeah, so that's how I looked at the value, and you work with customers too, right? I mean, there's give and take with everything, right? You can't ever just say, here's my dollar amount per square foot. Here's my dollar amount. It never. You have to look at every job differently. You have to. In some case, I've got a current customer who has we're too booked. We're like 2 months out.
Yeah, of course.
We're just turning people away. We get 2 to 3 phone calls a day, or we refer. I'll refer to Cardoza, refer to other contractors I know, and yet this customer is like, you're the only people that will respond. That's another. We get feedback. We get feedback all the time. So I have an office manager. She handles the calls. She handles. She's really my salesperson in a lot of ways, right?
Yeah.
And she's the one to send the text out that we're on the way. She's the one to send the text out that here's your booked appointment. All of those things, and we get feedback all the time that your office manager is amazing. She's a great salesperson for you, and those types of things are those other like things that customers appreciate, right? They really appreciate. But back to that customer, they're like, you're the only one that'll respond. We have a baby on the way. You guys have good reviews on all of the platforms that you're on, and with the new baby, we don't want a bunch of dust in our home, and we hear and see that you guys really manage that on the job. So I'm like, you know what? We'll fit them in. So you work. It's not just like a one standard for every customer for everything. You work with people. You get to know them, right? I look at it like you're entering into a partnership with that customer, right?
Yeah.
It's not just about a contract. We're in and out, and it's done. That job site might evolve over time. After you're in and out of that room addition, they might also be installing flooring and installing trim, and the walls get dinged up. And they're like, hey, this new thing you did, can you come and touch up these for me? Yeah, absolutely. What's it? It's not going to cost me hardly any time to go through there and touch that up.
Yeah. So cool. Greg Strebe, Finishing Touch Drywall out of Springfield, Missouri. Thanks so much for being on the Drywall podcast today, man. How cool. What a great conversation.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And it was an honor to be on here, and it was an honor speaking to you and kind of meeting you virtually face to face.
Yeah,
so
thank you.
You're doing good work, and I'm excited about our continued conversations and chatting with each other.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what you do with fresco, because you really sales is big, and you have a handle on that already. So establishing that relationship with the client is the segue to Fresco Harmony. It really is, because then now all of a sudden they trust you, and it's like, oh, what's this stuff? Oh, that's really neat. Yeah, I hate the texture. I get that a ton. Like, yeah, I've been wondering. I just didn't think there was anything you could do. And it's like, no, you don't have to grind off the texture. You can go over it now with the system. Your walls look beautiful. for the price of, paint is going up all the time. It's just it's something that you can offer your clients that's like, makes you look good. It makes the designers you work with look good, or the architects. So you've already got that, man.
I've got perfect example. Was patching. I was just hired to do a little patch job, and again, it's part of that conversation. I'm not even thinking about, hey, I'm trying to sell this to this person. Hey, there's this new thing that I'm working on called Fresco Harmony, blah blah blah. And he's like, oh, really? We're trying to sell this house. I want to put tile over this fireplace upstairs. Why don't you come and take a look at this? And it's a perfect fit, and it's not for the brick or anything. It's just one of those fireplace inserts and drywall, above and around it.
Yeah,
and he's like, I think that would go well there. I don't have the time to install the tile myself, and I'm like, yeah, I'll make you up a sample. They picked out Rio steel, ordered that, made the table. They did like the satin over the gloss.
Yep,
done. Just turned into another sale. The customer in the time and effort from having to install something else, and it's going to be beautiful around their fireplace. So
probably cheaper too than the tile, way cheaper, or stacked stone or something weird. This is something simple that a client can do on a fireplace. It's like takes you 6 hours, 8 hours.
Right.
It's a no-brainer.
It's a no-brainer. Yeah. And it looks great. Everybody that says this, seen the sample, says that looks like slate. I'm like, it does kind of look like slate.
Yeah, thank you so much for being on the Drywall podcast today. Just what a great conversation. It was really fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
All right, Greg, we'll talk soon.
Talk soon.
Bye. Special thanks to Greg Strebe, Finishing Touch Drywall, for being with us on the Drywall podcast today. I appreciate your candidness and your knowledge. Very impressive. Today's episode of the Drywall podcast and all of the episodes of the Drywall podcast in the month of October are brought to you by our friends at CSR. I've known these guys for a long time. They carry Fresco Harmony products. They gave me a shot. They're super cool. They're very supportive, and you can go into their shop in Toronto or in their new location in Barrie, and also you can find them online at csrbuilding.com. Interested in sponsoring a month of the Drywall podcast, reach out to me directly, info@frescoharmony.com, or give me a call, 505-400-9313. Join us every Friday as we have new amazing episodes of the Drywall podcast for your listening pleasure. Next week, we have Teak Interiors joining us. I'm super excited about that one. But for now, I hope you guys have a fantastic weekend. And remember, keep drywalling.